Hi, I'm Laura.
Hey, I'm Steffen, and you're listening to Attributed, a podcast library by Dreamdata.
The purpose of it is to store and share all the knowledge that we have gathered across Dreamdata employees through our LinkedIn Lives, podcasts, and webinars.
The typical topics you'll find here can be stuff like marketing,
Sales,
B2B ads,
operations,
social selling maybe. We decided to do this topic about how do we decide on which content we write, because I think many of the companies just like us, many of our customers, many of our potential customers also develop a lot of content. So we wanted to give you an insight into how we produce content. How we prepped for this was that I guess each of us did
some notes,
its own notes, and then we'll try to mix them all together once we get started.
Yeah, hopefully there's not too much discrepancy, right? Because if not, we're not doing something right.
We just left our desks sitting next to each other and then moved into another room. I think we should just
just
get started.
An overview maybe of like how it started with Dreamdata, I guess. Maybe just the company journey with writing content, because I guess that changes quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it changed quite a bit since you started. So now, can you recall where we were once you started?
Oh my goodness, yeah, maybe
2.5 years or something.
Yeah, it's been about just under 2.5 years, and I think there were maybe 10. It might be a bit of a stretch, but about 10 blog posts that you had done mostly. I think those were covering the product mostly, or the category, very attribution focused, if I can recall.
Yeah, I remember really, specifically the website was pretty bare bone and basically didn't explain much. 80% of our product. So it's I think today is also a little bit about think about which stage you're at. If you're like at an enterprise, how much of it have you covered already? If you're just starting out, what is the main things you need to cover then? I think, so we start with the case you're just starting out. Yeah. I would try to look at our website and think about the way I perceive what a website should be is that it should basically be explaining any question that you can ask about. Ideally, it should be explaining any question you might ask about a product. And if you're just starting out, typically you just have a front page and one or two sub pages, and it's rarely enough. And what that means is that whenever sales conversations start, your salespeople have to be able to explain the whole A to C of your product. There's high demands for salespeople that needs to be good at selling. They need to be good at your niche, your product, and so forth.
And I think that's a good place. That's where I guess a content marketer comes in at a good point in time, or should come in relatively early in order for you to start addressing those at the content level. So it's not your sales peeps doing it. And that's, I think, when you start to develop your blog that addresses some of those questions, perhaps also further up in the pipeline, right?
I think one of the things we started out with once you started was to actually let the salespeople dictate a lot of the stuff we were writing. So it was coming straight out of customer calls. Hey, I got this question. I was not able to answer it. What is the answer here? And I think if you get the question one time in a sales conversation, there's most likely 10 or 100x the same amount of people who are thinking about the same. And then we kind of one by one drilled into all these questions that one might ask in a sales conversation with us.
I dare say that there's still a big element of that at Dreamdata. And also just to add another angle, I think one customer saying it is already not only a guaranteed reader, but also someone that's already in your radar. You don't have to convince them. So actually you can address their exact problem with your content already. There's also a chance that you can help push them over the line. Yeah, I think sales, as far as what influences what we write, I think sales is probably, I've put it here as my 1 and 2, both in the pains, because they're talking to customers, right? They're exposed to the pain points quite early on, and also from requests on the more product side of things. And I think the one that I'm working on just now, which I hope to have finished fully, but I need to send over for review, is what data can you send from Dreamdata to your CRM? And that came straight from a customer's mouth, right? And it's actually, we're not addressing this anywhere. Let's produce content, because there's bound to be a lot more people just like you asking it.
One thing that I'm thinking a lot about, and we are debating sometimes, both of us like the SEO, search engine optimization discipline, but you have to consider the context or like the nature of SEO, which is one, it takes a long time, both to come up with the content, to write it, so somebody to come into your website, convert, etc. So it's a very slow discipline, and you might not even be guaranteed that the things that people arrive with the intent to do on your website actually converts to business afterwards. So the angle I want to say here is that when you start out with answering the questions for the salespeople, then you're guaranteed that there's some value in the product, that the salespeople get a URL that they can send to the customers. Hopefully over time, then that whatever post it is starts climbing the ranks as well. But
just to add on that, I think so far for us in our journey, the organic element has been pretty far down on the priority, almost for these exact reasons. But I do like to think that we're starting to see traction even without putting the effort in. And that's why now maybe we're going to develop this front a little bit more, hopefully bring it up in our kind of what influences what content we're producing. So it's been mostly sales. I also want to put in product. I think the product team has also influenced, and the stuff that they're putting out has been a big driver in what content we produce. I think sometimes we need to talk about the product. It can't always sell itself.
I think in a customer journey sense, where if things come up that are closely related to people making a decision whether to buy our product or not, that would 9 out of 10 times overrule something that would be about starting a customer journey.
For sure. And I think that's where the recipes, we've put this resource onto our site, given it a relatively prominent position, which caters precisely for these use cases. Also existing customers, we're looking at kind of the renewal aspect and churn prevention and stuff. But certainly for those that are really at the bottom of the funnel, and suddenly, mostly Steffen's been driving these, what questions are marketers asking that our product fully answers, and how do you do it once you're on the product?
Question in here. So has there been a time where you decided to rewrite some content?
Yes, there has. I think on my end, there was a lot of good content initially. Some of them were performing especially well. I think time to revenue comes to mind, which was a really good post you did, Steffen, that has been slightly tweaked. I would like to think that, now hopefully we've just had Eric join us on the team, by the way. So he's gonna help us go through this process now and try and identify those posts which actually are kind of hidden gems that could be doing a lot better, and we've already produced. So kind of he'll go hopefully through the rewriting process, and we'll put a bit more attention on that, I think.
Yeah, I think there's no kind of holy cows here as well. So like when things become outdated, we'll go in and update things as we go along. We've also been going back and adding videos as we've produced those to them.
That's a very good point. Yeah, we have
throwing in some internal links here and there to try and beef up the rankings on different kinds of posts.
So the answer is yes, but maybe not as much as we could have probably, or would have liked to.
But teach us how, if there's stuff we should be doing better. What else is on your list?
Yeah, I think there's also, and we can't escape it, how do we decide what content to write? We're an attribution company. I think going back and looking back at our content, what's performed well and what hasn't has to be a factor. We do a review, I think both of us almost independently, but when we use our content analytics on Dreamdata to go back and have a look at what's really worked. And that is across the different stages, right, in the pipeline, which is really important. So what's working, to drive MQLs, and then what has continued to work further down the pipeline. So I think, it would be remiss of us to ignore how important analytics is in influencing then what we go on and write.
That's a very good point, Jeremy. What you're saying is basically we have some content, it ranks somehow, it pulls in traffic. But what you can do with Dreamdata, if you can check whether the emails that landed initially on a piece of content, whether that actually progress to the sales pipeline, or ideally all the way to being a one new account. And what we mainly look for is the content that produces these journeys that go quite far down the pipeline. So an analysis, I'll try to make it big. If it's too small, then reach out to me afterwards and I'll share it. What we have here, I can see it is quite small, but you can basically see we find up what produces MQLs, next to what produces SQLs, next to what produces new business. And if you did the analysis from the left towards or only looked at the left side with what produces MQLs, you'd end up producing a lot of content that doesn't really have necessarily an intention to move on towards the later stages which you want to be selling from. So on the left side here, you see underneath there's the bounty program, which is a good, it's people who search the internet to find rewards, bounties for mistakes on websites, etc. And people that convert here have absolutely zero intention of buying our product. What we have on the right side here is what URLs was included when people bought our product. So for example, here's 10 use cases for the data platform. It's a technical piece, but it demonstrates how to use the Dreamdata product. I think we also did, so we did this one once we launched the data platform, but we did a similar one once we launched the content analytics feature. And now we're doing it again with the CRM piece that you talked about, 10 things you can put from Dreamdata into your CRM system. So these very technical pieces is an inspiration for us that like those that are seriously interested, they want like deep stuff.
Deep analysis and deep insights into how you can use the product to answer your questions, right? Or your pains more than anything. Yeah, apart from that, I think really there's one more that we do use sometimes. And like I had to mention the attribution and the analytics, but there's a bit of gut feeling as well. I think we're still early enough as well. Sometimes maybe a bit of inspiration on LinkedIn or browsing or whatever it is that suddenly, one of us comes up with an idea and says, maybe we should do something like that. I think there is an element of that when we...
It's like a process of come up with an idea and try to do one piece, see how it performs. If the response is good, and then what is response here? Again, I was thinking about there's always two things. There's the leading indicators, which is kind of people liking or engaging with the content. And then the lacking one is, pipeline or revenue comes out of interacting with it later on.
Yeah, and we use both. I think, right? I mean, more the second when we can, but yeah, I think sometimes when we get an idea and maybe we've done something similar, or we do go back to those indicators. I guess
there's also then different types of content. So if like you watching Dreamdata, then you'd see on our blog it's rather like serious, well thought through. But if you follow us on LinkedIn, you'll see all kinds of silly stuff and memes and just having a good fun.
And I think that speaks to the whole content format and choosing that. I think we've been super experimental, I think on LinkedIn in particular, with memes that have proved extremely successful, or as far as we can get with some of those leading indicators. But also closer to home, now we're running a video experiment, so we're pumping out a lot of YouTube videos. If you're not subscribing to our YouTube channel, now's your chance, because there's some really good content coming out on there. And I think we've tried almost everything. We test it. We do look back at the data and see, okay, how successful has this been? What does success mean? I mean, there are some questions, and depending again where you are in your business life cycle, then what that represents. But yeah, I think videos is a big thing we're doing now. I'm also thinking of pushing a bit more infographics, which we have underutilized so far. Maybe that tickles some customers' fancy. So yeah, a lot of iterations, experiments. I think there has to be a big part of that.
I was thinking like probably what takes place on the website is more like, it's a bit more serious because it's trying to help you make a buying decision.
Yeah.
Whereas on LinkedIn, that's more our, our experimentation lab, where kind of anything goes and you get really quick feedback. Then, one day Sam comes up with a meme and 10,000 people likes it. And then, okay, that definitely worked. Well, and then you can take that piece of content and put into ads afterwards, or write a blog post about why memes work as well.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good feedback loop in both directions. So sometimes when there's good LinkedIn posts that actually, maybe we could make a blog post out of this, or a video, or it could feed into ads. But then also in the other direction, actually, maybe there's a decent blog post that some of you guys especially are using on LinkedIn that or inspires you to do a good post on LinkedIn.
Yeah, actually, if we zoom out a little bit, I started thinking about as well, like what is the prerequisites you need before you start deciding on what content you want to produce. So one thing that we've talked a lot about is kind of who is our ideal customers?
Yeah.
Who are we trying to speak to? So it's always like, as we produce stuff, the question is constantly as well, is this valuable for us? It's a lot about B2B software companies and particular people involved in marketing. We had a vision that we talked about for the content that we put out, which is to help our followers get smarter or better.
Exactly. It's to be a value add, and that was a bit of an inspiration from what was his name, Patrick Campbell. Because he was on the LinkedIn Live, and he was really making a point about there needs to be a value to the content. There needs to be a takeaway, a learning. You give that up gratuitously, I think, and then I guess some people it might influence, but if you focus, this is maybe kicking ourselves a little bit or shooting ourselves on the foot. If you focus too much on the revenue angle all the time, that getting customers over the line and getting people over the line, then your content might not always be valuable. So you need to maybe a bit of 80-20 and say, okay, actually, I'm going to give out really good insights that is good, freely, out of the goodness and kindness of my heart. And I think there's
good question, really, which I think I'm undecided upon as well. Yeah. That why do you produce content? And one is that like there's one thing is helping the sales process, but how do you help the sales process? And I see content very much also as a top of mind game. So you have followers that doesn't have the problem that we're solving for right now. But we want to constantly be on the top list of friends that they like to consume content from. Because once they get into that buying mode, then hopefully we'll slide in as number one on the list of product that they need to be checking out. Today on the internet, brands are just like constantly battling each other for attention. And also, like particularly these days where budgets are more tight, then there's probably 3, 4, 5 different projects that companies can be deciding upon at any given time, and they might not be connected at all, but an organization can just consume 1 or 2 projects at a time. So you want to fight for you being that 1 or 2 projects that get pulled out there,
because it's also it's not only competing for customers, but it's also competing for kind of mind share for people's attention. And there's a lot of content, and it does get hard, and it's easy to get drowned out by all the noise, and it's not always guaranteed that your content's always going to work. So as failure is part of the process, and we continue to learn that as well. Yeah, that's a good point. Brand awareness is, I think, part and parcel, or the other side of the content can add value, but they're getting value from your brand, so you're kind of driving that.
Another thing I was thinking about, which is like not how you decide what to write, but I think if you're in doing content today, then or like want to do it, then you need to think about how you get the company along with this commitment to doing it, because it can be, there's time between when you start and once money come out, and you need a certain bit of patience before, like, when you start doing content, it's more a marathon than it's a
sprint.
Of course, you need to do every single sprint as good as you can, but it's more like you need to show up every week with new quality.
Yeah, I agree. And that's also the benefit, just to insert here, the benefit of having an attribution platform, because at some point you might be able to prove that value.
Oh, good question here. So has there been a content piece you created that surprised you in terms of performance? I know.
I know the one. I think there is
the benchmarks.
Yeah.
Let me share this one. So in the spring of last year, we just for fun discussed whether we would be able to say something more general about B2B journeys
from our own data. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then we got Mikkel, our data scientist, to standardize some data that we could like play around with anonymously, and we put it into these, we called them B2B go-to-market benchmarks, where what did we analyze? We analyzed different first touch channels.
Yep, the average length for different segments,
different countries, different industries as well. And I'd say it's still weekly that people mention these benchmarks across LinkedIn. It's been pitched to journalists by vendors who liked it.
Yeah, it's the most cited, the most visited. I think it's performing best on all our metrics.
So that's definitely been. I think that it's also like once we have more capacity, we'll start sharing more and more of these benchmarks.
Definitely, yeah. I think there is a bottleneck inevitably in getting the data out and the data team to provide us with it. But people are interested. They want to be able to compare themselves with standards. I guess.
Let me pull up just to get. I'll do some honorable mentions here for a lot of our memes as well. The memes have really been. It's kind of a little bit silly, but it's also can be extremely effective on a place like LinkedIn where the virality is so high. So particularly Sam in our company has really been rolling these things out, and I think these. You're not lying if you say this meme with the cheerleader has been seen by millions. Of people, and it's been used in newsletters and stuff like that. And it definitely caught us by surprise by how powerful can this be.
Yeah, and it's this one's a good example of repurposing content. We made this very short blog post about it, and that's also got some traffic, and it's ranking on some keywords as well. Surprisingly.
Maybe one question for you guys out there. How do you feel about watermarking memes? It's something that we've been talking about, but again, it goes completely against the nature of memes. But like if this had watermark, maybe it wouldn't have done viral as well as a consideration. One thing that has like positively surprised us as well, I would say, is these the LinkedIn Lives. Laura started it out as an experiment, just to like play around for fun and see how it turned out. And we've managed now to get it into a flow where we do one or like at least one per week now. And typically like somewhere between 50 and 200 people click attend to these things.
Yep.
And
it's also super useful for repurposing. I'm talking here with the writer hat, because I mean some of the guests are providing such value. Going back to this free value add that you want your resources to provide. I mean, you can't. Honestly, we've learned a lot from the guests, and I think that was a pretty good takeaway. And I think repurposing that into blog posts.
If we just follow that path a little bit, that's really good. Like, how do we decide our content? Let's make the easiest one, which is actually, I think, is an important component as well. We head into,
especially the smaller you are. Again, I think,
see our blog right now. You'll see here that like the last
couple of
three posts are like built upon lives we've done, for example, with Drew or Vladimir, and this one. And we then also got Kitty, our videographer, to like produce small video snippets of these that we send on to the speakers who've been on the events as well. So we've really been surprised by how much juice you can squeeze out of these. High quality juice, even.
And especially when there have been some very good quality speakers. I mean, it's not saying this, guys. If you haven't followed Dreamdata's LinkedIn Lives with Steffen and Lara, please do follow it. Go on YouTube. There's some genuinely useful stuff that we're applying weekly now.
And the next thing we're doing now is that we're starting to do like a best of through our podcast as well. So
yes, the podcast.
A live idea goes into a blog post, which goes into video snippets, which goes into a podcast as well. So that is really a quite effective content
repurposing.
Good. What else? I think one thing I wrote down here is to think through kind of when you're selling a B2B product, you're not just selling to one persona. So once you feel like you have exhausted one persona, try to list typically, and when we're selling stuff, who's involved in the journey. So I think in average, we have 5 people on one account with Dreamdata. So there's like several people to cater for. Like there's the marketers, but there's also the data and security people that needs to know that they can trust us. There might be some ops people. There might be CFO that we have to convince with our rationale. You can kind of list what are the 3, 4, 5, 6 personas in your buying committees, and then maybe green light them yellow or red. And if there's stuff that you have completely not catered to, then probably that's a good place to start, right? Some more content.
For sure, and what content do they prefer to consume? I mean, there's a lot of questions that go into that. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I think sometimes we get stuck into, we've got an ICP, we've got a target audience, and that's it. Well, actually, in B2B, chances are you're speaking to more than one persona.
Let's take Kyle's here. That's a good question, Kyle. How have you gotten your employees to devote time to blog writing? So it's mainly Jeremy who writes for us. I sometimes scramble some notes together, then perfect. But in general, the content output that our employees have is on LinkedIn. And I think the way we got that whole thing rolling, we did a blog post that we can link in the comments as well. But we started out just with a little competition, a team competition, to see if we could reach, was it 300,000 views as a team in a quarter, something like that. And how many were we back then? 4, 5, 6 people who participated.
I can't recall, We'll look for the.
But basically ended up like committing to trying to get 300,000 views in a quarter, and we ended somewhere around 500,000.
Yes.
And kind of that, Kyle, kind of led us to being like quite convinced. Okay, if we not just write 1 or 2 times per week, but if we write 5 times per week, we can have a significant impact on the demand for Dreamdata through this. So some good old competition. And then, it also takes you need to enforce it that it's valuable. So you need to also get people in your company to buy into the story. I think here we're good collectively, and everybody posts in a Slack channel, and we go like and comment each other. And we can then also see us being more and more mentioned on LinkedIn as a company to follow.
Yeah. I think there's so many, like the ripple effects of that effort we continue to feel that across everything. Like, speak of brand awareness, I think you guys are doing a good job. But yeah, and the question is, we have in-house, again, we've just got also Eric on board in the team, but mostly it's been me for blogs. But the entire team has now, I can say pretty much the entire team has bought into posting very frequently on LinkedIn.
It goes down to you incentivizing or like walk the walk. So if you want others to start, then start yourself. That's a good way to start. There's another one here asking, what are the ways to decide the tone of a particular content?
Depends. I think generally there's a number of things that I would say go into that, company culture being one of them, and your persona being another. If you're in finance, you probably want to have a more formal and serious, or legal, you want to have a more serious, formal tone than if you're in a kind of marketing world, I would say. But generally, I think for us, we've actually been quite lenient. There's relatively informal, depending on where you're. So I think as well, your channel, where you're writing your content matters. Steffen suggested it before, right? If it's website copy, that tends to be the most direct and kind of least fluff. And then you get the blog, which is a little less formal, and there's a bit more play in it. And then finally LinkedIn, where you just kind of put down your thoughts.
I think we've somewhat settled on a rather informal, but kind of,
I would say casual but informative. It's not there were some earlier posts where there was a lot more storytelling in it. There was a more tangent, more analogy, but that didn't necessarily pull more weight. It might just have been the topic. So I think just getting sometimes straight to the point, and I need to tell myself this all the time, is really important.
But I think the tone definitely, like particularly in LinkedIn pieces, like if you've prepared a post and you can feel like this tone is so dull and nobody's then they're gonna have an emotional reaction to it, or they can't feel that you care through this piece.
I think LinkedIn needs to be even more casual, almost.
I can see also that when I write excited posts, they also do really well, because I think people like to they can kind of feel the energy.
They want to share the success.
The posts. And one thing I had I have like a love-hate relationship to this SEO thing. Because I really like the discipline, but I think particularly if like you're a highly funded company that needs to grow extremely fast short term, I would be mindful on betting a lot on content as an SEO discipline, because it can be a very long pull.
But I think there is a kind of a middle of the way space that you can occupy, and this is what we're going to try and experiment a little bit with now, where you get there is the objective of ranking, but it's also influenced by the needs that have kind of been fed through. I think so. Play the SEO. Basically, it's play the SEO game for stuff that there's already a demand for in your customer base or prospect base.
And then I think whatever you do, then any interaction anybody have with your company is like building your brand in a positive or negative way.
Yeah.
So I would never ever commit to doing anything low quality because if there's something that the internet has, it's a lot of fluff of low quality. So I do give a big effort and produce quality output. Otherwise, people who are following, they will drop off quite quickly.
And I think that's why a lot of the stuff we've done, I mean, it gets harder as you want to kind of cover more bases, but it's what I call point of view articles. Like you will get, at least you can't go wrong by describing your experience with something. And it might not resonate with everyone, but I think that at least you can eliminate the bland genericness of it, which sometimes there has to be a bit of. But, once you add your point of view, kind of have you've experienced it as a company or as an individual, then almost by definition, it can't be so stagnant.
Yeah, so if we kind of, let's try maybe to summarize kind of what is, what's deciding content for us.
Yeah, I would say we get a lot from sales, kind of what customers, prospects are saying, for sure. Yeah. We get resources. What can we actually produce, I think, and what will give us a good return? I think there's you mentioned maybe not ROI, but certainly, kind of,
it's kind of two components. There is kind of how do we support sales and product? And then the other thing is how can we help our followers, prospects, customers get smarter? Yeah. Which is then kind of, we cannot release anything where you think they didn't get 1% smarter by spending 5 minutes.
Exactly. There needs to be a value add. I think there needs to be a takeaway.
One last question. How much do you cross-check the content with other departments, sales, engineering, etc.? That's actually a good one. So we cross-check all the time. Me and Jeremy, we're kind of marketing people. We don't understand the depth of the product or the technicalities. No. So we constantly ask to say, like when you do product updates, we rely on product people telling us this is how it works. We've built it in this way because that's valuable for the customer. Or we show the blog post to the salespeople saying that you feel like this answers the question that the customer would be asking. So I think cross-checking the content is one, it's really smart because the content gets better. But secondly, you also then kind of you get buy-in from the organization that what we're putting out here is good and meaningful. Yeah.
Sometimes, of course, there is, we need to bear in mind that sometimes there is inevitable, delay or lag in getting the content out as well. But I think it's worth it to make sure you're really accurate, especially with the product stuff. Yeah. I think we mostly take it. These guys also write, good updates. So it's just a question of taking most of what they're saying and then just adding a little bit of sparkle to it to make it a bit more exciting. But like we're really fortunate in the way our teams kind of work together. Yeah, make sure there's value. Yeah. I guess if we unpack everything, that should dictate what we do with this.
And if there's anything Jeremy or I can help you with, just reach out to us on LinkedIn and we'll be happy to answer. Okay, love the contest and cross-checking ideas. In my experience, having sales and customer growth teams to post questions from calls in a Slack channel, then having our service consultant write detail and how to it's exactly like we do it, Kyle. Like our sales team also uses nowadays they use Gong, so it's most sales calls are now recorded and they can share the snippets that people are asking, so we can.
And they're also quite good. I mean, we don't even have to listen to all of them when they really identify something that is now that has been put up a couple of times. They will just come and say, "Hey guys, we don't have this. We need this."
Yeah, maybe one last for insights on what to write. Then make sure that somebody from your marketing team sits in on the sales meetings once in a while to hear kind of what is the questions that comes up, because that can be a massive sort of inspiration as well for what you should produce.
We hope you like listening to us. Subscribe to our podcast and the ones that we have been guests on.
And if you have any feedback for us, just do let us know. And should there be a guest that you think we should be talking to, then pitch us.
We're looking forward to seeing you.